Welcome to dojo.live, the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Encora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Encora's Dojo Live, where we have candid conversations with industry leaders tackling the biggest technology challenges in travel and hospitality. I am your host, Kim Lantis, and today I am joined by my co-host, America Guerrero.
Hello, everybody. Kim, thank you so much for allowing me to co host this particular show with the one and only Jackie Brown.
All right, it's not an allow, it's a pleasure. And that's right. Hello. Today joining us also is fractional marketing leader Jacki Brown of Jacki Brown Marketing. Jackie, it's great to have you back on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to see you both.
That is absolutely right. We're super excited because today is episode number 2 of our new series, Empowering the Ecosystem Insights from Hospitality's Tech Enablers. On this series, and especially today, we're going to be exploring how early stage positioning helps hospitality tech vendors stand out, scale faster, and stop guessing. And of course, to answer also the question of what do you do when your messaging sounds like everyone else's? So, Jackie, thank you for offering your insight today on this important topic. Let's first get started with your story. How did you first get into the hospitality and travel tech space, and why is product marketing such a passion point for you?
So, I've been in the industry for about 8 years now, and about six and a half of those were with Amadeus Hospitality. And quite honestly, I was very lucky to just stumble upon the company, the role. I've been in marketing for about 2 decades, and
Wow.
both on the business to consumer side as well as the B2B side, and have done a lot of brand marketing and helping companies understand how to talk about their entire product portfolio and especially how to do that on their websites. So I did a lot of digital marketing throughout my whole career, but even a lot of this was with companies like Shark vacuums and Ninja blenders, where I was helping you understand your portfolio of vacuums and which vacuum is right for you. So I got
Love it.
the opportunity to bring that to the hospitality space and absolutely fell in love with the industry. How can you not? It is just such a warm and welcoming industry. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy the tech side, but I also saw a real opportunity and need for strong marketing. And so, about a year and a half ago, when I decided to launch my own consultancy, I decided to stay in the industry and am particularly working with travel and hospitality tech companies to focus there. And positioning, you ask, why did I fall in love with positioning, product marketing? I think to me, it is the essence of all of your marketing. It is the essence of your entire go to market strategy. It is the story of who you are, what makes you different, and how you can help the buyer ultimately.
Mm.
And I find that not enough companies, especially on the B2B side, are really spending time thinking about this and how to make their messaging, their marketing, even their sales conversations really resonate with the buyer and connect in a way that will convert.
Absolutely. And I think with you going back to your roots, your expertise, and just the foundation of today's conversation is all about, we're going to start with busting a myth, right? What do you think most people think marketing is,
Mm.
and where are they getting it wrong, specifically in this B2B hospitality tech where you saw this need to be fulfilled?
Yeah. So I think my perception, especially when I even just talk to friends and family, right? People think of marketing as the ads you see on TV or the ads that follow you around as you're on the internet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, marketing is so much more than ads, paid ads. And honestly, none of those ads work if they don't have the core story that's been tested, that's built based on customer feedback, and that addresses the problem. So I think that is kind of the myth, that marketing is so much more than ads, or making things pretty. I hear that a lot too, that that's what marketing does, is make things pretty. And what about this industry? I think what I found most interesting, and it's beyond this industry, but in this B2B space versus the brand space, is in brands. So I worked at one point with Unilever and worked on Nexus Hair Care. And the brand manager for Nexus Hair Care made all of the decisions for how we went to market. And she worked with all of these different agencies and owned the P&L, and everything came back to that. When it comes to B2B marketing, the product marketer doesn't really have that same power and ownership, even though they're the ones who are supposed to be the buyer experts, really understand the industry and the competition, and are creating all the messaging. Product marketing is still really new. And what I found, I had a product marketing title back in 2010, so I didn't realize that it's actually a fairly new area of an organization. It's only been around since about 2010. So I think people are still trying to figure out, what is product marketing? What do they do? Where does it sit? And what's the value? How do you make that all work? So I think that makes it challenging. And then, of course, when you have an industry that doesn't spend as much time on marketing to begin with, even more so, you see that that would be a challenge.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You have described a sea of sameness in this space. What
Mm.
is the feeling? Why is that a problem?
Why is that a problem? Well, America, it's when you think about, you're going to go buy something, and the first thing you're going to do is oftentimes look at everyone's websites. And if you pull up a website and the first thing you see, the first banner, we call it the masthead, on every website pretty much says the same thing and uses a lot of what I call like hype words or B2B jargon, it's going to be really hard for that buyer to figure out what you do. And you see a lot of people saying they're going to enhance the guest experience, they're going to drive more direct bookings. They're making these big, lofty promises. But if you look at 5 vendors and they're all saying the same thing, are you really going to keep scrolling, or are you just going to get frustrated and say, you know what? I don't have time for this right now. I'm not going to look into this anymore, and just move on. Right. So it's a very tangible thing when you think of yourself in those shoes. If you had to go purchase something, what would you do? You'd be overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And how do you break free from that sea of sameness? I mean, I
Yeah.
see that you can get lost with those two words. When is the right time to
Mhm.
bring in the product marketing?
So, in an ideal world, it would be in the beginning. And I just had the opportunity to work with a startup who they're very marketing minded. So they brought on me to help them through this. And we did their positioning, their messaging, we did their website, we created a content strategy and a whole marketing strategy for them to use going forward. That was about a 6-month engagement. And we started by the positioning and saying, where do they sit in terms of the competition? So the first thing I did was look at and research all of the competition and what they were saying specifically, and then cross reference that against what the team, the founders, felt was their greatest strengths. Interestingly enough, the first round of things they said were almost identical to what all of the competition was saying. And that's kind of a startling moment to say, oh, okay, now what do we do next? And it was almost like being a therapist where I'm helping you arrive at the answers yourself, and I'm digging and asking these certain questions to help you figure out what you're doing with your solution that provides the most value.
Absolutely. Can you maybe dig a bit deeper into what it
Mhm.
takes to uncover what makes you different and valuable. What does that process look like? What might people expect? Is it this big, huge, overwhelming undertaking, or can it be simplified? I understand you do have a kind of three-part research
Mhm.
framework that helps shape positioning. What could we
Yeah.
expect?
So I like to do positioning in a new way now. So I kind of have rolled this out in the last year and a half where I do positioning just on a one-page document. That's it. Your whole positioning has to fit there. There's no marketing messaging. So
Wow.
it's you remove a lot of that subjectivity that you get when people are saying, well, I don't like this word or that word. Like the words don't matter as much as the actual content and the order of those things. The first thing that I do is the research, like we said. So it usually starts off with a conversation where I'm asking you about what you're trying to achieve, right? And your buyers and all of that type of information. And then I'm going to go in and do a deep dive to look at your competition. I'm really working with folks in the industry. So luckily, I have that industry background already to have an understanding of what the hot topics are in the industry, what do people care about, and then thinking about the specific buyers. And all too often, I'm finding that people are not accounting for all of the nuances in the industry. So, is it a branded property? Is it a management company or an independent property you're selling to? If it's a specific property, what type of property? Is it a luxury or an economy? I mean, that's a very different conversation, especially because the roles, the buyer is very different. If a smaller select service property, they're more likely to be wearing more hats and don't have the same budget. Where if you're saying you're selling something loyalty related, a luxury property is going to have more budget for something like that. It's a very important, critical aspect of what they're doing. So being able to hone in to on your segment and your buyer is really helpful. So when I do that positioning, a bunch of that is the research, identifying your actual competition, the market category. So where do you fit? What are people searching for when they're trying to find you? Your ideal customer. So not just everyone you could sell to, but if you could really sell to anyone, who's going to be happiest with your solution? And then everything that's distinct about what you're offering. What are those features that are going to provide the most value? When you look at all of those four things together, you end up then discussing as a group what is the unique value. And I like to keep it to 3 to 5 points per product. And those are your key selling points. And you get so there's a way that sometimes I draft it, sometimes I work with a product person to draft it or the founder. And but most importantly, I think you get all of your key stakeholders in a room to have a
Mm.
conversation and look at that one page and get everyone to agree.
Do
Okay.
you have any examples of what that one page should look like? I know you mentioned we don't
You,
want things like enhanced guest experience or increased
yeah.
booking. It sounds like everyone else. It's not specific enough. What's a good final result in this definition? Like,
Mhm.
what would that package maybe look like? What's
So
our
the
goal?
words that you're using, that you just use as those examples, to me, that sounds very marketing speak. That's your B2B marketing speak. I don't want any of that type of language in this document. I want it to be just very direct and like what are they going to get? What is the value? But a level deeper than those key areas, because if everybody's going to be saying that, then what can you say that is more unique, right? So if it's, not just enhance the guest experience, you're going to create a better guest experience because of XYZ. Now, that doesn't have to be the most beautiful language in the moment, but let's just capture that that's why that is the value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a
Yes.
question. Um, what if a company didn't start with a product marketing in place? What now?
Yeah.
Can you course correct later? And how does that look like?
I would say it's never too late.
Mhm.
So, in an ideal world, it is best to start early
Mhm.
stage, like I said. And the reason that it's good to start early stage is that it means that all of the marketing you're doing, all of your go-to-market, all of your sales are going to be built on this stronger foundation. So they'll be more effective going forward. But that being said, it's, I would say, uncommon for people to have product marketing early. And so, for instance, when I joined Amadeus, I did all of the product marketing for Delphi, and it was a 30-year-old company. Now, it's not to say that that hadn't happened previously. I actually don't know how much in detail it had happened in the past, but the market is always changing. The comp set, your competitive set is changing. And so, even in that way, I recommend that even if you've done it, you should revisit it at least once a year. And also, if your competition makes some big changes. So, it's never too late, I guess, is the key takeaway there. And it's something you need to keep a pulse on over time to make sure that as your competition either changes in their product or changes in how they're talking, you're keeping an eye on that, as well as if anything happens in the industry, in the world. I think a lot of people changed their positioning during and after COVID, because obviously that was a huge disruption in the whole industry. And so the value you're providing and people's perception could change. And it's important to keep up with that.
It's an interesting alignment to me when you think about at least the companies in your wheelhouse, the B2B hospitality travel technology
Mhm.
companies. They're already doing this with their software development cycle, iterating, reiterating, and
Yes.
creating new things in their own products. So it makes perfect sense that that's what's also happening in the market, and just to kind of take that step back and utilize those same skills and what you're already used to doing in a new frame. If we're going to get tactical with that, where should this product marketing component live?
Mm.
Is it with the founders? Is it their role to take charge of it? Is it a full-time hire, a fractional individual like yourself?
Mhm.
How can smaller teams build this muscle without overextending?
So I think, unfortunately, the answer is all of the above, but let me go into some of the reasons for that. So, if you talk to the product marketers of the world, the majority sit under marketing, but there's still a good chunk that sit under product. So, there's already a discrepancy about where this should sit. In a small company, a startup, the founder is doing most of this work inherently. They're the ones who've decided that there's a need, that they figure out they're having all the early sales conversations, so they're getting the immediate feedback, they understand what's resonating, they're continuing to update their pitch, right? So inherently that is sitting with a founder. The problem with it sitting with a founder is it becomes deeply personal. And I will say that I am now doing this for the first time, having my own business, and it has been eye-opening, because I think we inherently want to do all the things. We as people know we can do more, and there's so much value we see that we could bring in. But it's confusing if you tell someone you can do 20 things. You really need to be more clear and more direct and help them shop and buy. And so that's where you have to really narrow down and focus. Now, if you're a smaller company, I do recommend bringing on a consultant right away. Get this early, get it done well, take some of the personal connections out of it, because someone's gonna like rip apart your baby a little bit, right? It's I actually have seen people talk about like their this syndrome of it feeling like it's your own child, and how hard that can be to say, well, this part is good, but this part is not as good. And that's where the therapist comes in and helps you arrive at these challenges, and understand the nuances. In terms of as you're growing as a business, I would have a product marketer as maybe your second or third hire. I would have your first marketing hire be someone who is really strong on marketing automation and ideally can build and grow based on an initial plan. And so that's what I've hired with some of the companies that I've worked with. So I'll sometimes act as a fractional head of marketing, and I will hire someone in marketing automation first. In this industry, we also know events are huge. So You might also want to, as a second hire, have someone who focuses on events. But I think product marketing is either second or third there, being able to create strong content that will connect with the buyer, connect with their challenges, and help them understand early on. I think the other thing we often don't consider being on the vendor side is that only 10% of people are actually in the market right now. So we need to be top of mind for when they are in the market, or help them understand that sometimes they actually have a challenge that they don't realize there's a solution for. And it's a pain point, but maybe not a challenging or painful enough that they are looking for a solution. That's
Mhm.
another thing product marketing can help with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The process sounds eye-opening, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable. Like, for example, if I want to go to the therapist, I know that there is like a scary side of me that I don't want to confront, right? So how do you help leaders move through the fear
Mm-hmm.
of not being everything to everyone? Any mindset
Yeah.
tips or practical coping strategies that you can share with us?
Yeah, I will say I think it is easier now that I've gone through it on my own to empathize and share my own experience. Um, Prior to that, it was a little bit harder to navigate, and it is challenging. It is, and I think ultimately what I try to promise is we're going to just start here. It doesn't mean you can't get to these other things, but let's start here and build and gain traction and then continue to add. And ultimately there's a lot of research and data points that show that this is what is most effective. My own experience shows that it's most effective. So it can be a little challenging though.
Absolutely. It sounds like when you walk into the garage and decide you need to clean it.
One step at a time. Yes, or you
Yeah.
just get overwhelmed. I know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just ultimately keep the clean garage in mind as your end goal, but like just do what you can do today.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. We're coming kind of to the end of our conversation today. So I did want to sort of zoom out in terms of this, continuing this theme of
Mhm.
a mindset. What's one mindset shift that you wish more hospitality tech leaders would make when it comes to positioning, to storytelling, you know, what do you think is still necessary in the big picture?
I would love to see us think of our marketing more the way we market and we see marketing to consumers. It, we oftentimes take this kind of stodgy approach and use all these big words that make us sound impressive and fancy and powerful, but it's hard to get through and it's dull, right? It's not as engaging. Ultimately, we're marketing to people. We're still trying to reach individual people. And yes, there might be a buyer committee. I think the average, you see the numbers from Gartner are 7 to 10 now. But usually there's still one champion, there's one advocate within the organization that is the one you are trying to sell to, and then they are helping to advocate for you internally. I've seen a little bit of it. Cloudbeds did some really great videos last year. I don't know if you've seen them. They were super funny and engaging. They have a stodgy gentleman who's kind of the old school style general manager, and he's trying to do all these things on paper and pen, and his new hip team members are saying, what are you doing? We don't do it that way anymore. And they're fun, they resonate. I would love to see more storytelling in that way. But that also can, right? It can get costly. Those videos must have been completely set up and shot end to end on property. So it doesn't have to be to that extent, but let's tell stories. Let's tell more stories.
I have a question. I think that we still have time. So, how much different is this from personal branding? I mean, you are
Mm.
talking about product marketing for a company, and now there is a person who is having activity in LinkedIn. and they want to tell a story, but now you see that there are more people using like the same story, even if they are using their
Mhm.
personal branding. How different is this strategy to the company and the individuals?
It's a
There's
really
a
good question. And where
lot.
do they overlap, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. And so when again, doing it for myself, I'll use myself as an example. I thought of what is my actual positioning? How do I want to be recognized? What are my content pillars? So, what are the key topics that I'm going to talk about? And then you really hone in on three different topics. It's the same thing that you would do as a company. Now, interesting is when you have, say, a co founder or a founder who also has their own brand, personal as well as the company brand. And I think it's fantastic to have founders and leaders of any kind, C suite, posting on LinkedIn, sharing their perspective. You will have more impact if you hone in on certain topics, though. And so you'll see there's a few women leaders I follow, and they talk about what it's like to be a woman leader or be a mother as a leader. And that's a big part of their story. It's not their whole story, but you'll commonly see that. Whereas they'll also talk about the challenges they're solving for with the solutions they're working with or customer conversations that they're having. And I think it's nice to have some consistency in the types of comments because people then get to know you, they know you're an authority and have a perspective on those key areas.
Absolutely. Very interesting going back to not having to be everything for everyone as an
Yes.
individual as well. And I think for me at least, I fear the repetition. Like it's like I already talked about that. So what
Yes.
else do I have to say? I have nothing. But it's actually the repetition that I'm understanding that sticks. And so it's the
Yes.
opposite of what my gut or my brain is telling me.
Mhm. And we do that as, personal as well as marketers. I see it. I saw it with the team that I was leading where we would put something out and you just kind of hope that it catches on and then you move on and create some more content. And it's like, no, we need to use this one piece and continue to message it in different ways and different angles, get more life out of it because people it's quick. You're not catching up on everything. It's like once you feel like you're being redundant, keep going.
The redundancy. I love it. Jackie, this conversation has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for such a smart uh, take and actionable insights on how early stage product marketing, or coming back to the beginning and
Mhm.
doing it reiteratively, just how you're helping vendors, rise above the noise, position themselves more effectively, and really to stop sounding like everyone else. For those of you, those listening and joining us today, if they want to learn more about you, your work, explore your fractional marketing services, what's the best way to connect?
Well, I will be at High Tech. So if you're going to be at High Tech, find me, find Kim. Kim and I are going to give
Yeah.
each other a hug at some point in real life.
Yes.
And then you can also find me on JackiBrownMarketing.com as well as on LinkedIn at Jackie Schroeder Brown.
All right, perfect. Thank you once again, Jackie. Thank you also to our sponsor, Encora, for making this series possible and all the amazing conversations that are coming along with it. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow Dojo Live at our website, dojo.live, across socials as well, for all of the insights from tech enablers like Jackie across the hospitality ecosystem. You can also check out episodes there and stay up to date on what's coming next. What's coming next? Well, you'll join us tomorrow, we hope, for episode number 3, our unusual Friday episode. We don't usually have episodes on Friday, but this
No.
week and next week, we definitely will. This is episode number 3, happening tomorrow, June 6th, where we'll be joined by Melissa Jacoy. I need to check that with her. I forgot to verify that. But she is amazing, and she is the Chief Operations Officer at Benson Consulting. She's going to be talking about closing the gap from what vendors sell to what hotels are actually using. And we're going to explore beyond surface level adoption in real world activation for both vendors and hoteliers out there. So listen up. And until then, of course, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, America.